Hi guys, it's T with Teaquilts, and today I'm here to show you how to make bias binding. I'm making bias binding because I have this stripe here that I want to put on my quilt, and it is a straight stripe. And so when I cut it, if you look at it like this, if I cut it into 2.5-inch strips, this is what I will have on the outside of my quilt. However, I want to cut it on the diagonal, and hopefully you can see that. When you cut something on a diagonal, you get a little bit more interest to the binding. And I know it's only 1/4 inch on the outside, but I think that it's well worth it. And so I have about 34, just shy of a yard of fabric here, and I'm just going to cut the entire thing into bias binding. So how do you start that? You have to actually open up your fabric, and we are going to actually we got to make a 45-degree angle, and one way of doing that is just taking one corner of your fabric and folding it till it meets the other side to make. And I'm also making a point up here in this corner, and I know you can't see all of this on the screen, but I am trying to basically just make a 45-degree triangle. And note that even though you want to be at 45 degrees, you don't have to be exactly at 45 degrees. It will still be a bias binding. Okay, so I now have this at my 45 degrees here, and you could just start cutting strips here off of your 45-degree edge here, and you will have your bias binding. However, I'm going to try to reduce this a little bit so that I'm not handling as much fabric. This end, I would go ahead and start cutting my strips off of here. So that's what we're going to do. I could use my die cutting system to cut this, but I'm going to go ahead and use just my rotary cutter. We could also flip this up, fold this end back, just so we can get a little bit more control right here. And so now I am going to start cutting off 2.5-inch strips. Now I'm on the wrong side of my cutting table to be cutting, especially with the camera in front, but I'm going to get the rotary cutting supplies and try to cut for you guys. Okay guys, my battery went out, so I had to switch that out. And now I am just going to go ahead and find my 2.5-inch measurement. And I am going to cut this first one a little bit bigger because I have the folds over here. So I'm actually going to cut like 2 3/4. And then come back and cut off the fold. So I'm putting my 2 3/4 line up along this edge. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut. I am just going to pick up this first one, flip it down so that I can cut my strip into the right size. Two and 1/2. All right. So this is waist. And now I have strips that are now on the diagonal. And so I'm just going to put these aside for right now. And then I'm going to continue to cut. Now I know this isn't going to be a big piece, so I'm not going to cut that. I'm just going to leave it as a big triangle. And now I'm going to cut the rest of this into 2.5 inch strips. Okay, so I've cut strips and I just want to check to see what my lengths are. This one here will get cut diagonally through the corner. And then I've got nice lengths here. So I'm still getting good length, so I'll keep cutting. And this one here, I just need to cut at the 45-degree angle. And pull down a little so you can see. So again, we have another corner here. I'll cut that apart. And then we still have a decent size length. Another corner piece here. I'll cut. And a decent size length. So, I'm not going to cut anymore. You can see what my next strips would be. They would be pretty small. So, I'm just going to go ahead and keep those pieces. I have plenty for what I need in this project. And so the next thing I'm going to do is line them up with the direction of the stripe. So I'm back and I have cut all of my pieces that were connected on that 45-degree angle. I've cut them apart, separated them into 2 piles. And these are the strips that are going in the opposite direction, kind of making a chevron here, which would be an interesting thing to do. But yeah, I am going to not use these because I think I have plenty of binding, and I am going to go sew all of these binding strips together with a 1/4 inch seam. And sometimes your binding edges may match up so that you don't have to have any waste. Like these 2 pieces here, the angles are going at 45 degrees opposite of each other. That means you can just fold this down, leave a 1/4 inch down tip at the top and bottom, and you can just sew these pieces together. And that's what I'm gonna go do. You have sewn binding strips together, I'm sure, in the past, so you don't need to watch me do that, but I'll come back with my finished strip and then I will show it to you after I press it, as I'm about to sew it onto the quilt top. Alright guys, I'm back and I have all of this binding. When I sewed the pieces that I sewed together, I had over 11 yards of binding. I think for this project I needed 8 or 9 yards. I can't remember which one it was now. But I have connected those pieces and I am putting this on my long arm and I'm pinning it to my quilt top so that it doesn't stretch. And I'll show you how it looks further down the quilt, just so you can see how I'm making sure that I pin it so it will not stretch. But what I'm going to end up with is just a 1/4 inch binding that's going to be on the diagonal. And I don't know if you can see that. see if I can zoom it in a little bit. Right there. So you can kind of see where I'm going to have binding that's just on a diagonal. And I thought that that would look better than just straight out from the edges. Now let me show you what it looks like on my quilt top. Zoom you out a little bit. And you can see where I have pinned all the way down my quilt. Whoops. I'm kicking the tripod feet, guys. But I haven't done this part here because I have a pin in the corner that's on the other end that I want to move down here so I know where my 1/4 inch stop is. So that's it for this video. See you guys next time. Thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Share my channel with your other quilting friends, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye, Teaquilters. Stay blessed.